Hello folks, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another One Piece review. This time we're covering manga chapter 1184. And Oda is like doubling down with the backstory of Brook and Princess Shuri, aka Gunko, which I have no problem with. And after the introduction of Queen Candel in the previous chapter, or the end of last chapter, it's pretty obvious what Oda was going for with highlighting King Ruwen in this chapter. I'll get into that more, but before I get started with this chapter, you can't mention One Piece without the masterpiece that was episode 1163, Robin and Saul episode, or if you really want to be real, the Robin episode. There's no need for me to talk in depth because everything finally gave Robin the spotlight in the anime. In my opinion, it's easy to say it's the episode of the year because it's now One Piece is on a seasonal format, but not only is this the best episode of Elbaf, bar none, and I don't think anything else will come close. But just because of how everything was laid out, the chapter itself was great. Like, there's very little chapters that will come close to that. Even if looking back at it now, it was a clear rush job by Oda to get to this plot point, the fact of the matter is, it was still well executed. So, not only was this the best episode of Elbaf and the best One Piece episode of 2026, I would go so far as to say the top 5 most emotional episodes we've ever gotten. Coming off the heels of Bonnie and Kuma and their reunion, that was top 5 in Egghead Island, and that was well done. From Egghead Island, the moment Robin found out Saul was still alive on Elbaf, we knew this moment was coming. It was building up to this moment. They built this episode up tremendously. Like I said, when covering this in the manga, the way that Oda set this up, it all started with Oda bringing Robin's bangs back, her hair bangs back for this reunion. It escalated even further in this episode. So the rainbow is obviously inspired by a Bifrost Bridge. Once Robin touched down, it was all about the Robin hat. You had the Straw Hats there to add their support, but if you noticed, they kind of backed away after Luffy, and this kind of really stuck out to me. It stuck out in the manga because I mentioned this anyway, but it really stuck out in this episode because obviously you have the voice acting. When Robin was approaching Saul after seeing he crashed up on the beach, obvious gag. Robin knew it immediately. But then you had Luffy trying to muscle in on the reunion. Nami put a stop to that shit real quick. She's like, no, stop, because it's not your reunion, it's Robin's. When this came out in the manga, I called this out. It's like, yeah, what Oda did was he really let the moment breathe without including the Straw Hats to do the usual silly gags. They left that to the side, and if you noticed, Oda waited until the very end of this reunion to actually get the Straw Hats interaction. And the way the Straw Hats reacted is the way the fandom did, and the way the fandom did with this episode. Now, granted, the anime here, Toei added an interesting little spin here. The animators decided to include a musical montage, which, I mean, for Christ's sake, Robin got an insert song highlighting the best moments of Robin. Through a comedic gags, a dark humor, to a most of epic moments. Like, when was the last time we ever got this? For any reunion. I don't recall seeing this for Sabo and Luffy when they got their reunion. And before anybody says, they were waiting to surprise everybody with the anime. No, that's complete bullshit for 2 reasons. 1, it already happened in the manga. And 2, they already spoiled Sabo twice. At the end of the previous episode, we saw Sabo to hype up the 3D2Y special, which we got him at the end of that special as well. So you can't say they were keeping it a surprise because they already spoiled that. So they did do that for that reunion, which was emotional too, but that's my point. The anime went above and beyond to add nuances to what was already emotional to begin with. So they added a musical montage and an insert song for Robin and Saul. That was great. They included the Straw Hats reaction post credits, which I thought was an interesting choice, but really it makes sense because they weren't a part of that. They weren't the vocal point of that reunion. It was Saul and Robin. So I like that they left that moment to breathe, and they had the Straw Hats reaction by the end. Straw Hats minus Zoro, Jinbei, and Luffy was how the One Piece fandom felt after this reunion, manga and now anime. And like I said, you can make a case for this being top 5 as far as being emotional. I would not argue. I think this is not only is it emotional, it's actually one of the better episodes they've ever done. from the moment that Robin found out that Saul was alive, I said it multiple times, like Elbaf was going to be Robin's kind of arc, like, and now you can even make a even bigger case for this being Brook, maybe Brook's arc in Elbaf, because we transitioned from what was Robin getting the spotlight to now Brook getting the spotlight. But speaking of which, we get into the cover page and a cover request, and we got Brook, coincidentally enough, group of jellyfish, 2 major Easter eggs here. This is a cover request. The first of which is Brook being electrocuted, gives off Nami vibes, big time. There's also a scene involving Princess Shuri and Brook, with Nami vibes in that too. I'll get to that, but... And the other Easter egg, which is clear as day, is the eyes matching Emu being attached to these jellyfish. It is a cover request. There's not much you can take away from it, but I did find that was interesting that somebody made that suggestion to Oda. Speaking of Nami and Nami vibes, we start off the chapter with Princess Shuri, aka Gunko. 7 years go by, so she's at the age of 14 now. And boy, oh boy, I have to say, like, now that Oda takes off the headdressing or the headgear that was covering Gunko during the God Valley incident, here, even at the age of 14, she screams out Nami. I'm sorry, like, I mean, obviously we know there's not a connection between the two, but you can make a case after this scene and mistake it for Nami. Also, if you notice Gunko, and I don't know if this was present in the previous chapter, I think it was, but I may have missed it. Gunko also has the eye in the backstory, so it's not a case of Emu's influence here. Like, no, Gunko already had this eye, so I'm real curious if we're going to find out about this. Since Oda made this entire chapter about Brook's backstory, I won't be opposed against it. We're going to have to get something about Gunko beyond what we've seen. You got an army of men trying to win Shuri's heart and try and marry her. That wasn't going to happen because apparently she's still got a thing for Brook even at this age. And following this, you got Princess Shuri not only looking adorable, but she's acting adorable. But she's got the same expression Nami did after the Lego block phase of this arc went down in the anime. It's the same facial expression with the tongue out. Very cute. Then she pulls up a heart symbol. I've grown strong and I've grown prettier, trying to gain Brook's approval, and he does admit that, but then Princess Shuri takes it one step too far here and says maybe my chest will go boing boing someday. I'm like, whoa, that's too soon for that. Inappropriate at this stage. But then Brook goes up to 2 other girls saying, can I see your panties? So there's the gag right there, and it leads to Brook getting kicked by Princess Shuri. So there you go with the Nami vibes, because as soon as Brook says that in the present, what happens? Nami's right there on cue to kick the hell out of Brook, although Brook really hasn't said that since Gunko's been introduced, so I will give him props for self-restraint. Princess Shuri admiring the songs of Brook, but this is really about diving in depth into Brook's backstory, which I did not expect. This really triggers something for Brook. This triggers a response from Brook. His Majesty says the same thing, so we actually get some characterization from the king, not just like Prince. It's not about Queen Candel in this chapter. It kind of is, but it also highlights King Ruwen in a positive light, honestly. Well, Brook may admire him, but it doesn't stop him from going around saying he wants to marry Queen Candel right in front of him without... Now, granted, Brook may not notice, but like that's not something you casually say out loud to somebody you admire. Brook goes on further to say, I owe them a great debt because they both ended up saving him from as a child. Go further into Brook's backstory. At the age of 11, so only 3 years younger than what Princess Shuri is at this stage of the backstory. So now he's dropping on other kids that are practicing music because he's obviously infatuated with music. The way it looks to me, it seems like he's an orphan here, playing music for his parents and his brother, which that was kind of like out of left field that Oda did that. Like, they added more layers to Brook as if he needs it, but this was actually cool. That Oda's acknowledging that Brook, no, he had his parents too, and he had a little brother, but because we don't get to see them, or we may not get to see them, it gets off the vibe that Brook is an orphan on Esperia, looking at other kids playing music, and would love an opportunity for that. He does get that opportunity, but he goes through hell before he gets introduced to King Ruwen. Because he's in a scrapyard, he's not even playing the actual violin. He's like it's a bottle with metal wires and shit. You can make a case because we saw Robin at the beginning of the previous episode being chased off, being ostracized because of the government spreading lies about her offing the scars of O'Hara. So now we know why she had a bounty on her head. Brook kind of gets similar treatment here, but obviously he's poor and he's not upper class like what we see now. So Brook really had it rough too. He gets chased off. He goes into a scrapyard. Music catches the attention of King Ruwen, and obviously he's completely different to what we see now. It's the classic case you can't judge a book by its cover, and in my opinion, Oda needed to do this during the introduction of Queen Candel and the obvious trope that was King Ruwen up until this point. So Oda needed to do this. So this is why we got more insight into King Ruwen more than we did Queen Candel, which we may learn more about that anyway. So Brook gets introduced to King Ruwen, or at this stage, Prince Ruwen. Comedically kind of says, "Oh, are you a fan of my music?" King Ruwen responds, "Yeah, maybe I am." So Oda's portraying King Ruwen as somewhat, or Prince Ruwen at this point, as kind of a father figure to Brook at this stage. It kind of mentions, "Oh, he's 21." Brook comedically responds, "Oh, got an old face. Seems like you've had it rough too." So that was kind of funny. Again, it's calling out the trope here, because at first seen we know where Oda is taking inspiration from. So apparently Brook is not only good at music, but he's also kind of good at cooking, because he's able to feed King Ruwen at the scrapyard. Now granted, he did it by capturing frogs and adding curry powder to it, so that obviously that's all it took. But somehow it reminds King Ruwen of his current life with Queen Candel and what looks to be a butler. I don't know. Well, again, more Nami vibes, especially with the crown. Clearly this hits Prince Ruwen hard, because he's tearing up and Brook is like calling it out. So, wow, you like it that much? You're tearing up. Brook is not trying to cut him out of money like most people would. It's hilarious that like Ruwen has like 2 bottles of alcohol, and one looks to be whiskey and the other looks to be, I don't know, maybe sake or wine. Either way, that's not probably something you should be pulling out in front of an 11-year-old, considering we see Brook with one of the bottles. So I don't know if he's drinking alcohol at that age, or if that's just like, I hope it's soda. Speaking of Robin vibes, we go back to Esperia in this, even further in this backstory. We see the Marines and they're picking up violins. Makes sense. Now I have questions though being tortured here, so this is giving more elements, more depth into Brook's backstory. So if you couldn't get any more emotional from what we've seen already, Oda's like, here you go. Apparently Brook had some powder on him, but he's making it off like it was curry powder. This leads to Candel and Ruwen showing up to bail Brook out to save him. So that was kind of cool. But this is the way Brook gets introduced to both of them. Again, look at King Ruwen, the way he's reacting towards Brook. His relief, you're alive. It was all about saving Brook, more so than what secrets he may have shared. Both of them attacked, which I liked. It wasn't just one or the other. Both of them attacked. But it kind of leads to Ruwen being scolded by Candel's like, please be wary of the position you're in. But Brook didn't know he was a prince all along. So they kept that under wraps for obvious reasons. So now it makes you wonder about the Marines and the agents showed up on Esperia, or if that's the case and they didn't want that public knowledge. He didn't want to lie to Brook, but at the same time he enjoyed spending time with him, so that was kind of cool. This is Candel, who at this point is the captain of the escort corps of Esperia. Then he goes on to then Ruwen goes on to say, don't tell anybody about the curry powder you stole. So I'm like, wait a minute, Brook was saying that it was curry powder, but then he's being told don't tell him about the curry powder. So it's almost like King Ruwen is don't acknowledge this powder at all. Don't tell him anything about this powder, even if it's curry powder or not. That's the vibes I get. So I'm like, what's with this powder that Brook had? Maybe it's an additional spice for catering, and it piqued the interest of the world government. I don't know, but that definitely seems sus to me. King Ruwen's like, we feared the worst, but then here comes Candel, ever the charmer. Is like, oh, I thought you would brought a cute friend along. Candel's already given Brook his flowers and also giving him a nosebleed. So then King Ruwen is like, prepare an extra room. But this leads to Brook getting a place in that Esperia Palace household. It's like, prepare a room immediately. Brook, you're one of us now. So there's no more discrimination here. At least not from Candel or Ruwen, which is cool. But that's how the chapter ends, with getting even more of an in-depth look into Brook's life. So with Oda revealing that Queen Candel at this stage, when first meeting Brook, is Candel is the captain of the escort corps. In this backstory, Brook becomes the current captain of the escort corps of Esperia. Princess Candel took over and became queen. Much like the God Valley incident, we're getting different time slots of the backstory. So we dive further back into Brook's backstory. So I imagine we're going to get the birth of Princess Shuri and then Brook being there, because that's going to lead to the decision that Brook makes back in the present on Elbaf. Like, what do you want? Like Jinbei told Brook, what do you want to do? Do we take her out or do we save her? We can't do anything without your discretion. So we know where that's going, but this adds more layers here. Because of that, I'm kind of shocked that Oda's going in this direction. Like I said this in my last review, I'm real shocked that Oda's taking this approach because A, we just got done with a previous backstory, the longest backstory and one of the most epic, with God Valley being sprinkled into King Harold's backstory. Now we're getting Brook's backstory told with the connection of not only Princess Shuri's interactions, but also Queen Candel, and now King Ruwen. And like I said at the beginning, when you look at everything in this chapter, when you look at how people reacted from the previous chapter with the introduction of Queen Candel and when they saw King Ruwen, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Oda's adopted a trope that's done to death in anime. So here Oda gave us definitely a better insight into King Ruwen's character, which is the old cliche goes, don't judge a book by its cover, but up until then, you can't really help but judge a book by its cover, because, I mean, there really isn't a saving grace for this trope, so of course people are going to have to assume things, but I'm glad Oda's taking that and playing with our expectations here, and King Ruwen, obviously, is a positive influence on Brook's life. Queen Candel, obviously, is going to be a positive influence on Brook's life. Whatever happens to Princess Shuri remains to be seen, but as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was like prevalent in the previous chapter, but clearly we see at the age of 14, Princess Shuri has the two different eyes in this stage, so that's not emo influence, at least not yet. I hope we get more in-depth look into Queen Candel before whatever happens as far as like the conflict of interest, as far as like whatever happens to Princess Shuri, because that's definitely an eye catcher, but I kind of want to see more from Queen Candel as far as personality wise. Clearly we know she's strong based off what Brook said in the previous chapter. She's strong. I hope we get to see that, how strong she actually is, because Brook took care of the Moran gang in the previous chapter, so we didn't really get to see what Queen Candel can do, although I imagine she's Queen of Esperia for a reason. I kind of want to see what Princess Shuri can do, considering she thinks she's strong at the age of 14, which I don't doubt, considering what we see on the present. And I want to see if she has a devil fruit, more importantly. So maybe that has something to do with the eye. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below. Definitely a great chapter, following what was a phenomenal episode in the anime. If you have not seen it yet, I highly recommend you do. Episode of the year, although that's not really saying much considering it's like on a seasonal format, but you get where I'm going. Definitely an amazing episode. Going to be a tough act to follow, and I don't think they will. Or we'll have to wait and see. As far as like an emotional standpoint, nothing's going to come close. So that's going to do it for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. You guys know the drill. If you enjoyed this review, hit the thumbs up. I appreciate that. I appreciate all you guys' support. Take it easy, guys.